And now I've become involved, very much more recently, because I was retained by Elizondo, who was the head of the top secret program inside the Pentagon itself to continue investigating the UFO phenomenon. The internal documents that he was able to extract, similar to the Pentagon Papers, that were top secret.
Why do you think this information has been a secret for so long? Like, why are they keeping it such a secret? The powers that be.
Well, the initial motive was to try to back engineer the technology that they had gotten from the initial craft to use it in a secret weapons program. They realized that if they could figure out the technology as to how these UFOs were held, that they could possibly have faster than light vehicles. They could have jet fighters that could travel, at 20,000 miles an hour. If they could figure out how they're shielded against friction in our atmosphere, as the UFOs clearly are. That the UFOs could be going 20,000 miles an hour and then do a direct 90-degree turn right out of going straight forward at 20,000 miles an hour and come out of the 90-degree turn going 20,000 miles an hour. And that whatever that technology was, they wanted it. And they wanted to keep it super secret that they had recovered it. And so what they did is they set up a program not only of just, quote, keeping it secret, but in suppressing anybody else from finding out about it. And so that if anybody saw a UFO and tried to get it reported to the government, as the documents that Richard Dolan had gathered in writing his a PhD thesis, which he basically ended up publishing, which is called UFOs in the National Security State by Richard Dolan. It's a 2-volume edition, and he lays out in detail the internal documents that he was able to extract, similar to the Pentagon Papers, that were top secret. And he got a hold of these things, and it showed the details of the planned program that they had to suppress anybody who tried to talk about UFOs, and that they specifically set up the policy of declaring these people to be crazy, that they were mentally ill. Anybody who thought that UFOs were real, anybody that thought that extraterrestrial life existed, they were so aggressive in attempting to keep this secret that they began to mount a secret war against anybody who attempted to indicate to people that this was going on. Now, this probably was a fool's errand, to try to suppress this, since the UFOs were flying around and people were seeing them and people were taking photographs of them. And what they would do is they would target these people with a totally unconstitutional, totally illegal, totally criminal program of attempting to destroy their lives, destroy their family life, to destroy their careers. And they began doing this. And they were not only suppressing people inside any government, military, or intelligence group that found out about these things. They would turn on them and tell people they were crazy, and they would order them to go get a psychiatric exam right away. And that's how John Mack became involved in it, who was the chairman of the Department of Clinical Psychiatry at Harvard Medical School. He was the guy to whom a number of these people had been ordered to go get a psychiatric exam. And Dr. Mack, after having examined a number of these high-ranking military officials and others who tried to tell people about this, he said, look, these people are not crazy, that they're totally within the normal parameters of mental health, and yet they all keep insisting that they know this information. And so John ended up writing a book about it. And the campaign of ridicule and denigration of people who believed that UFOs were real and believed that they were actually coming from an extraterrestrial star system, that they were being castigated as mentally ill. And the program had been so effective that Harvard University itself, when Dr. Mack, the head of their Department of Clinical Psychiatry at the Harvard Medical School, went public about this information, that they attempted to suppress him. and brought him up in front of a tribunal of faculty people in 1994 and virtually threatened to revoke his tenure if he didn't remain silent about this. That's when he retained me to be his attorney. And it was in that context that I began to learn even more about this than I had learned when I was special counsel to President Carter's investigation back in 1977. So here I was now in 1994 being legal counsel for Dr. John Mack at Harvard. And John introduced me to virtually all of the top people around the world who were the experts in this particular area. You get to meet the head of the Federal Aviation Agency's investigative group inside the government that were investigating the UFOs. Got to meet general officers. For example, I got to meet the commanding officer at the Malmstrom Air Force Base, who was the commander of a nuclear missile site, a Minuteman nuclear missile site in 1967, where a UFO came across the top of it and shut off all 10 of the Minuteman missiles that are all independently wired. I got to meet all of these people to bring them in as witnesses to testify to Harvard University in what we were going to mount as a grand rounds, basically, at Harvard, to brief Harvard in, which was my college and my law school and my divinity school background. I had this opportunity to try to brief Harvard University about this information back in 1994. And they just viewed it as completely anathema because they had been subjected to the same psychological operation directed by the Central Intelligence Agency and the United States Defense Department to excoriate and denigrate anybody who tried to talk to people about the UFO phenomenon. And so that's how I began to get more and more information, got to meet more and more of the top level people around the world that are involved in this. I became legal counsel for Dr. Mack's project on extraordinary experience research there in Cambridge. And so I got to meet a significant number of experiencers, as we call them, people who not only had seen UFOs up close, but had actually encountered UFO beings, the people that were actually flying these UFOs. And so the people had met these UFO people, and the UFO people were communicating with them telepathically and trying to warn them that we as a human species had to get rid of all of these nuclear weapons, that this was going to destroy our planet, that it was going to destroy the life-generating capacity of our planet, that our planet Earth is one of the comparatively rare planets. It's not unique, but it's comparatively rare in our Milky Way galaxy that actually gestate life. If we have a thermonuclear war, it's going to destroy the capacity of our planet to gestate life. When these encounters would take place, when individual human beings would actually encounter a UFO, basically landed on the ground and be taken aboard the craft, they were being telepathically communicated with by these beings. And they were telling them that they have to get rid of the nuclear weapons. This is going to destroy your planet. And these beings also told them, you have to stop contaminating your planet. You are pouring all of these kind of effluents into your environment. You're pouring poisons, chemicals and stuff into the streams. You've got nuclear, you're using nuclear power, which is generating plutonium waste, which is going to poison your entire planet. Because if it gets into the water systems of your planet and into the air of your planet, it's going to destroy the life-generating function of your planet. So these beings appeared to be extraordinarily concerned about what was being done by the national security state to develop and distribute nuclear weapons, not only for the United States, but they would sneak nuclear weapons to places like Israel and South Africa and Brazil. Now, this was all being done by the United States to try to place strategic nuclear weapons around the world so that we could threaten the world into, according to their own documents, establish full spectrum military dominance over the planet. And that was that was a terrible mission to be assigned to our military people and our intelligence community people. So I became aware of this, and from a legal constitutional point of view, I saw that was a terrible threat, not only to our planet and to the life-generating capacity of our planet, but more prosaically, a fundamental threat to our constitutional government to allow this thing to be going on. So I became more and more involved in it, and I became a legal counsel for the Project for Extraordinary Experience Research with Dr. Mack in Cambridge. And I later became legal counsel for the Disclosure Project with Dr. Stephen Greer. And I was the person in charge of vetting who the witnesses were that we found to be adequately credible from a legal point of view with regard to court admissible evidence to present to the world, which we did in May of 2001 at the Disclosure Project at the National Press Club. We brought 24 major firsthand witnesses from mainly inside the government to communicate to members of Congress this was true. But the campaign that had been mounted by the Central Intelligence Agency and the covert operations people inside the Pentagon that had been so effective that the members of Congress didn't even dare come to the press conference. They would have to sneak people from their staff in civilian clothes, not even wear their suits, but just come, like regular people coming in off the street to come to the press conference to figure this information out. Like I brought the commander of the Maelstrom base, the Air Force colonel, I brought him to meet his congressperson to tell the congressperson face to face about the UFO that came over their base back in 1967 up at Maelstrom, up in Montana, and shut off all our nuclear missiles. And the congressperson was so frightened of the national security state that he didn't even dare tell anybody about it. That's how serious this problem was. And so I devoted myself to trying to get disclosure, to work through the constitutional structures, to try to literally encourage the members of Congress to take this issue up and to insist upon getting briefed in on this information. And so that I became an integral part of the Disclosure Project. That in addition to working with Dr. Mack as my client and working with the Project for Extraordinary Experience Research and meeting the experiencers, I ended up being able to meet all of these other witnesses that Dr. Greer had very, very important, undertaken, assiduous work to reach out and find these people and get them interviewed initially so that I could re-interview them and determine which of these 24 people we were going to present to the world, which we did back in May of 2001. So I've been at this for 47 years, and now I've become involved, very much more recently because I was retained by Lou Elizondo, who was the head of the top secret program inside the Pentagon itself to continue investigating the UFO phenomenon and attempting to find out what the source of this non-human intelligence, as they call it, this extraterrestrial civilization, to find out what they could about it. But it was being done inside the military. And so that the prism through which they perceive the entire UFO issue in the entire existence of this extraterrestrial civilization as some kind of a binary dialectical threat to our civilization or our planet. What I've been endeavoring to do is to try to get Congress to become involved in this, to get briefed up on this so that they can take responsibility as our elected leaders for determining what the policy should be with regard to our relationship with this extraterrestrial civilization, rather than having it be myopically prismed through the lens of military threat. That's what I've been involved in. And I know that Dr. Greer wants that to be done. I know that Dr. John Mack wanted this to be done. I know that the people that are involved in the entire disclosure movement around the planet want to have this done. And we want to get our elected legislative leaders briefed in on what this information is so they can then decide what the process is by means of which this information needs to be conveyed to the people so that we can adjust the different aspects of our human culture to adjust to this new information, which is going to be substantial. But at the present time, the military and the intelligence community is kind of under the whip hand of this Majestic 12 type group that still wants to keep it secret so that they can uniquely gain the advantage of weaponizing this technology, which is a threat to our entire planet and a threat fundamentally to our entire future relationship with the extraterrestrial civilization that surrounds us everywhere.
It's just amazing, Danny, how pervasive this secrecy issue is on this topic. And I'm just wondering, what can be done, or can anything be done to uncover these unacknowledged special access programs that exist inside the government?
Well, what can be done is what we're doing. We have now succeeded in getting the overwhelming majority, 89 of the 100 senators in the United States Senate, all across the political spectrum. For example, we have Chuck Schumer, who is the majority leader for the Democratic Party, and we have Marco Rubio, who's the ranking member on the Intelligence Committee in the Republican Party. We have Mike Rounds. We have across the political spectrum inside the United States Senate, we have virtually uniform support for a program that we've been involved at our New Paradigm Institute, that I have helped set up a New Paradigm Institute, which is a citizens-based group right on Capitol Hill. We're basically the only civilian group, non-government group inside the federal enclave on Capitol Hill to work directly with the members of the House and Senate to get them to pass a piece of legislation, which they have done in the United States Senate, setting up an entire mechanism by means of which to command every single one of our 6 military services, all 18 of our United States intelligence agencies, all 32 of our United States Defense Department agencies, and every single private aerospace corporation that has been put into possession secretly of any of this technology by our military to try to back engineer it. They command all of them to gather all of that information together. Every single scrap of paper, every report, every telephone message, every communication of any sort that relates to the UFO phenomenon and to the existence of this extraterrestrial civilization, to gather that all together and have it available as of October 20th of this year, 2 weeks basically before the upcoming election, that information is to be gathered together and provided. The Senate demanded that it be provided immediately on October 20th to the National Archives and to the members of the Senate and House Intelligence Committee, so that Congress would have possession of this information. So the United States Senate has spoken on this, and they're getting ready to do it again. They're getting ready to repass this same program, demanding that the president appoint a special board to review all of this information and make all of the information available to the public that is older than 25 years old. Now, this would entail all the information about Roswell. It would entail all of the information about Betty and Barney Hill. It would entail all of the information about the Aztec crash. It would entail all of the information about the UFOs that shut off our nuclear weapons back in 1967. All of this information, this United States Senate has demanded be made public as of October 20th. Now, what's happened is the private aerospace industry that is in possession of some of this UFO crap want to be able to get patents on this technology so that they can make trillions of dollars throughout the next 10,000 years of the future on owning this technology and having to license it to our government instead of it being possessed by our government on behalf of all the people of the world. So this is a challenge. And what they have done is they have basically bribed 2 of the major members of the House of Representatives, one of whom is Michael Turner, who is the head of the Intelligence Committee in the House of Representatives. And they bribed the fellow who is the head of the Armed Services Committee inside the House of Representatives, Michael Rogers. They bribed them basically by paying money to them to get them to stop this bill from being passed in the House of Representatives. And in our parliamentary system, in our governmental system, we have to have both houses of Congress approve this plan. We've already gotten it approved by the United States Senate. And these two men have persuaded Michael Johnson, who is the new Speaker of the House, to refuse to put that Senate bill on the floor for a vote in the House. Now, but very, very important, and I really hasten to make this clear, they have approved in the House the portion of that bill that has commanded all of our military services and intelligence agencies to gather all the information together and have it available by October 20th. The problem is they haven't commanded them to turn it over immediately to the National Archives. They just said you should turn it over as soon as possible, and so that there's this big gap in our success so far. We haven't gotten them to do that. Okay, and so now we're getting set to do it again. By the end of July here, the United States Senate is going to be approving the repassage of that same law that was passed a year ago by the Senate, commanding not only that all this information be gathered up by October 20th, and that it be presented to the National Archives immediately, but they've also passed a law commanding the president to set up a special board that is going to make public all of that information that's 25 years old or more. And they're going to have that board review all of the newer information that's been obtained since basically the year 2000. And make some of that available unless the president personally asks to have any piece of that information postponed. And they've imposed all kinds of very strict limits on what criteria the president can use to try to postpone any of that information. And then that board is supposed to release even the newer information. Okay, so we're on the very brink here, and people don't seem to realize this. We're on the very brink now of having this information made available to the people. And so we have succeeded to some significant degree in this long 47-year campaign that we've been involved in, that I've been involved in getting disclosure started. And so that we've been successful in getting the United States House of Representatives, for example, the Oversight Committee, to hold a hearing a year ago on the 26th of July, in which one of the people on the secret task force inside the Pentagon, David Grush, to come forward and actually testify in open hearings in the House of Representatives on January 26th of 2023, stating that our government is in possession of a non-human origin extraterrestrial spacecraft and the bodies of the occupants of the craft that have been established to be non-human. Okay? That testimony has been provided now even in the House of Representatives, in addition to the command that the Senate has passed that the president has to establish a UFO controlled disclosure campaign that is to be undertaken by the president to make this information available to the people. Now, that's where we are right now. And so we're hanging right on the edge of the success in getting disclosure done. What our New Paradigm Institute is doing, in addition to drafting legislation to protect the whistleblowers inside the intelligence community and inside the military, to come forward and provide this information to Congress, that we have crafted a major statute through the New Paradigm Institute to enhance the protection of UFO whistleblowers. And we put it into the hands of the House of Representatives, Tim Burchett, the congressperson from Tennessee, and others have organized a caucus inside the House of Representatives to try to push back against those three individuals. The two that have been paid off by the private aerospace corporations, Mike Turner from Ohio, from the 10th District in Ohio, which is where Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is, to which they took the original craft from Roswell. And the other person, Mike Rogers, who's from the 2nd Congressional District in Alabama, which is where the Redstone rocket range is, where they're attempting to back engineer the technology that was recovered from the UFO craft, into a weapon system. That those two people who've been bribed, openly with money being basically delivered to them in brown paper sacks, of cash, to pay for their elections, are blocking this. And what we've done at the New Paradigm Institute is we have drafted legislation to protect the whistleblowers to come forward, to keep them from being retaliated against. And we are in the process also now of participating in attempting to appoint the members of this review board that the president has been directed, indeed, by the Senate to appoint, that are going to release the information to the public. That we are one of the citizen groups, the New Paradigm Institute, that have been authorized by the previous law passed by the Senate to help nominate people to this 9-person board. And our New Paradigm Institute is also dedicated to trying to determine, all importantly, what is it we're going to do once this disclosure starts and the information starts to roll out. How are we going to adjust our economic system? How are we going to readjust the geopolitical structures of our planet? How are we going to readjust the major religious institutions on our planet to accommodate this extraordinarily new information that is going to be coming to us from the extraterrestrial civilization? We find ourselves in a situation that is analogous to the tiny island in the South Pacific back in the mid-1950s. The tribe that lived there didn't realize there was a whole world that existed outside of their island. And as soon as they were contacted by the outside civilization on our planet, it was demonstrated to them that their culture was so parochial and so constricted in what it understood about reality that within months, their entire culture collapsed. Okay? We cannot afford to have that happen to us. What we have to do is we have to, in addition to be pushing to get the disclosure made, we need to make sure that it's done in a controlled and responsible manner so that our institutions can adjust to this information as it is becoming available to us. Okay? That this is what the new paradigm is all about. What is the new human worldview that is going to accept the reality that we as a human species, the Homo sapiens on this planet, are not in fact the only intelligent, sentient beings in the universe?